Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
Here's a question that I want to ask you guys to start this video. What is it if we could walk out of this season with that's not like the obvious, right? So if we go with, the Shador turns into franchise quarterback, or somebody on the team who plays quarterback turns into franchise quarterback, and we get saved mysteriously. What is it that you hope to achieve this year that would be at the highest rung of a ladder that you think the Browns can climb? Realistically, right? Not a ladder that you think would be unrealistic, not something that you're hopeful about, but like when you look at what this season is as a ladder and you climb it, what's the last rung on that ladder? For me, I think the most important thing for the Browns to achieve is to create an identity on offense, maintain their identity on defense. And I think the cherry on top of that would be having that identity be bulldozer, right? I want the Browns' offensive identity to be a physical offensive football team with an offensive line that can move people out the way. That's what I want to see. That's, I think, the best case scenario. The reason I say that is for a number of reasons. But I think this is what's best for the Browns in the short term. I think this is what's best for the Browns in the long term. Here's why I think that. First, let's talk about why an identity for a football team is important. I think that is the fundamental building block that you need to have a good unit on either side of the ball. Like a good offense has an identity. A bad offense is identityless, right? A good defense has an identity. Like when you close your eyes and you think about the Cleveland Browns defense, you can imagine what it looks like and what it should feel like, right? The same way when you close your eyes and you imagine a Ravens defense, you have that same thought of like, okay, they should feel like this. For the longest time, the Steelers were like that when it came to their defense. And even though the Steelers' offenses and the Ravens' offenses haven't been spectacular, you can close your eyes and imagine what those offenses look like and how those offenses contribute to winning. The first thing you need before you can be good is an identity. The reason being is because the identity is where you can funnel all of your energy, right? Think of it like when you go to the gym, right? A lot of us have tried to go to the gym with the general hope to get in shape or to get into better shape or just to get stronger. But if you go to the gym and you don't know exactly what you're trying to work on, you can end up wasting a lot of time or wasting a lot of energy because you don't really have a plan to funnel that energy. You're just kind of walking around on vibes and saying, I'll do some curls here, I guess, and then I guess I'll do some pulls here. And it's better than doing nothing, but it's not a use of energy that's going to result into something meaningful over time. Usually when you go to the gym and you're aimless and you stay aimless, you end up not maintaining your schedule of going to the gym. This is why gyms offer classes. This is why spin classes are super popular at the gym. Yoga classes, CrossFit classes. What's the other one? The Zumba. They be doing the Zumba. Like you joke around, right? It might not be your jam, but there's a reason why it's always 30 people waiting to line up to get into them classes, because when you do a class, it at least gives you something to focus that energy on, right? I like to swim. The reason I like to swim is because when you're swimming, you're only swimming. Like, you just focus in on that workout. And that's all you can really focus in on. Now, that has more to do with my ADHD than anything, but I don't mean to get distracted. But the idea here, right, is that you can have a lot of energy, and generally with that energy, you can have a vague goal. But if you don't have a specific way of funneling that energy into something productive, you just end up with noise. The Browns have a lot of young talent on both sides of the ball, and they're having a growing amount of young talent on the offensive side of the ball. They just signed a bunch of offensive linemen. They're probably going to add a handful of young prospects to this offense in this draft. So there's going to be a lot of energy on this offense, a lot of energy about this offense. But that energy will dissipate and be useless if we don't have an identity to funnel that in. What an identity does is it gives you a template for success. So now when you're drafting and you're saying to yourself, well, what do I want to be? I want to be the Cleveland Browns. What's being the Cleveland Browns? I want to be a physical, downhill run team. And then you have guys that have filled that role that you can say, hey, this guy worked with this skill set. We're going to get another guy just like him, right? When you have an identity, it's easier for you to replicate that identity. It's easier for you to develop for that identity. It's easier for you to maintain success. You need an identity. It gets people to buy in. It gets people to develop. That is the first thing that this offense needs. Right now, it's a blank slate, right? There is no expectation of the identity of this offense. So Todd Monken has an opportunity with these young guys to create the identity for this offense. Now, creating identity for your offense is not as simple as saying, hey, we're going to do this a lot, or just saying in press conferences what you're going to do. You can't create an identity without success. Again, think of any player or any team that has an identity. They don't have that identity just because they said that they could do that. They have that identity because they proved it on the field, right? Or like, you close your eyes, you think of Mike Tyson as the knockout king. It's because he was knocking people out, right? You think about the Houston Texans and you just think about violence because they go out there and they're violent and they're successful. If they were violent and unsuccessful, we would think of them as stupid, right? But they're violent and successful. So the Browns defense, like, again, they have an identity because they're successful. So they need to focus this identity that the Browns are going to try to create this season on something that they can be successful with, on something that they feel strongly that they can be successful with. Let's be real about the passing game. I know some of you guys are fans of Shedeur, and you don't like it when I don't talk about Shedeur as a franchise guy, but let's be honest, he had, 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. This is not a franchise guy yet. Maybe he could become that in the future, but right now he's just another young quarterback in the NFL that hasn't proven anything. So that's your quarterback situation at best, right? At worst, you're wringing out the carcass of Deshaun Watson to see what you can get out there, or trying to pull and stretch Dylan Gabriel like Laffy Taffy to try to get him out there to play quarterback. Yeah, so you don't really got great options there. You look at that wide receiver room, and it's certainly not enough to carry this offense. You got some good pieces. Jerry Jeudy can certainly be better. Harold Fader can certainly be better. Well, not better. It can certainly improve from his rookie year. But it's not enough for overwhelming production or to focus the energy of the offense on. The obvious place where the Browns can be above average on offense is the run game. They have Quincy Judkins, who I believe is capable of being a Pro Bowl to all pro level running back. You have Dylan Sampson, who I think is an above average running back at running back 2. And then you can fill in running back 3 with whoever you want to fill it in with. If you want to bring back Nick Chubb, I don't think that's the worst move in the world. I think there's some upsides to it, and maybe that's another video for another day. Me begging the Browns to bring back Nick Chubb. Hell, why not? But the focus of the Browns should be their ability to get push on the line of scrimmage. Everything that they've done in the offseason has been to get push on the line of scrimmage. If you want to have a team that feels visibly different from last year, right? Last year, I think the most notable thing about the Cleveland Browns was that they could not get any push on that line of scrimmage. Like, think about how far they have fallen from that one play in 2023 against the Ravens where Jerome Ford gets carried for an extra 15 yards to put a nail in the coffin of the Ravens on the road to what that offensive line looked like last year, right? That first image, that image of the Browns bullying the Ravens, that's what we want the Browns to feel like, right? I don't think a lot of people in Cleveland want the Browns to feel like a spread out, quarterback reliant, high octane offense. I think the image of the team that the people want from the Cleveland Browns is very similar to what they were in 2020, right? A team that can run the ball at a high level and push guys off the scrimmage. Like, that's what people in the city want. That's the kind of offense that people in Cleveland will get excited about. And that's the kind of offense people have been trying to create in Cleveland since I was born, right? Like, you go back to Bill Belichick in 1994, and he's talking about how he's got to make this team be blue collar and run the ball and all this shit. Like, that's what the natural identity of the Cleveland Browns is. The franchise that was the professional home of Jim Brown, right? We should embody that kind of physicality, especially when that's where you need to lean into if you're the Cleveland Browns. So I know we're going to talk a ton about quarterback this year. I know we're going to have a ton of discourse about quarterback, but if the Browns can run the ball well enough to where quarterback could be an afterthought, that's the best case scenario. Another reason why this is the best case scenario is that if the Browns can lean on their run game, then that means that they can have more margin of error for developing a quarterback, whoever it is that it might be, whether it's somebody who was a high draft pick that maybe needs a fresh start somewhere else, or if it's somebody on the roster that's young, hasn't had that many opportunities, or if it's a rookie in 2027, we need to give that person a margin of error so that everything isn't reliant on them, so they don't get benched super quickly when they go out there, or they don't have their confidence tossed, shredded, and ruined like 5 games into their NFL career. This is one of the things that the Browns have not done, and it's part of the reason why we've talked about quarterback for 25 years as a question for this team. The Browns have never established an offensive identity outside of the quarterback position. They need to establish that, and maybe establishing that will help them finally be able to develop a quarterback. I don't think it's a coincidence that the few times that this franchise has went to the playoffs or won more than 9 games, you can look and see a dominant running performance there, right? 2023 wasn't as dominant on the ground, but the defense was dominating a lot, and the run game was solid enough. It certainly wasn't a quarterback-led operation. 2020, you had Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt teaming up at that point. And it was a lot more Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson in that season than people remember because Nick Chubb was hurt. But the point still remains. You had a dominant run game to lean on, so all the pressure wasn't on Baker Mayfield to produce points. And then even in 2007, people forget this, but Jamal Lewis was a monster his first year in Cleveland. Let's build up that identity so that we can have something for whatever young quarterback comes here next to lean on in their development. And maybe, just maybe, that might help the Browns finally develop a quarterback, because we could talk about all the different guys that we've had in here. We've never really given a quarterback. But that's all I got to say. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you think it's important that the Browns develop an identity? And if that identity is anything, what do you want that identity to be? Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.